Life should be fun, especially in the arts.
I first met Phil when the garage was struggling with some coding issues, and we were negotiating with the city on trying to stay open. We met and he came down and saw what we were doing. He said he had seen artists redevelop areas like Soho in New York and Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and that the garage and myself and the warehouse and John Bryan and others were doing similar types of things, and he was going to do everything in his power to help us succeed because he felt that's just what Winston needed to create some vitality and energy and some critical mass down here in the Arts District and in downtown in general.
I wouldn't be in Winston-Salem if it wasn't for Phil Haynes. We needed space and we needed freedom and flexibility, and we found that in a building, and then through meeting Phil and the rest of the community, we found that in the community. But if he wouldn't have helped rally support, this idea would have never gotten off the ground.
We had a message on our answering machine from this southern-sounding guy that said, had heard that we wanted to open a restaurant downtown, and how can he help?
So I called him back, not knowing who he was, and he started bringing people together. He liked what we wanted to do. He gave us a lot of encouragement. He did not give us any money.
Like he's like a broker, you know, in getting us in touch with the right people. I think, you know, a little muscle helps. I think you can't get more muscle than Philip Haynes in this town, and we're gonna miss that.
He was interested in ideas. He wasn't interested in talking about the problems. He was interested in finding ways to initiate ideas. That was what drove him.
Phil loved people, and he loved the energy of being around people. And oftentimes he would come in and say, the music's too loud, turn it down, or the music's not loud enough, turn it up. Or, do you have any good people in here for these people to talk to? They might be a doctor here. They might come to town and start their practice here, and they need some smart people to talk to. And so he just loved the energy of it. And he also believed in Kaizen, which was lots of little things add up to big things. And he said, it takes too long for the big things to happen, but little things can happen quickly, and they add up to be big things.
Phil ate with us a lot. He was here up until the time he went into the hospital at the end. He was the best kind of customer, and he was the one that you wanted to see come, and you were happy to see go sometimes.
You know, he was.
But he was demanding, but he made you better.
Piedmont Craftsman was located on Renona Road. It was pretty clear that they had to move. Key thing that I think Phil did was really get behind the board of PCI and the supporters of PCI. And when I say get behind, he got behind and stayed behind, pushing and shoving to give the board and the supporters of PCI the gumption, if you will, to move to the Arts District. If he got behind something, he got behind it 200, 300%, and he never let up. That was what was Phil Haynes, in effect. That's what made him what he was.
There was a photograph of Philip at the opening of the new wing at Sika. It featured Philip and Joe Hirschhorn, and behind those two men were two paintings by Frank Faulkner. And I think it symbolized a lot. I think brought all together the things that Philip did. He brought people from all over the country, all over the world to Winston-Salem, and he put them in places where they could then exercise their magic. And Sika is certainly a place, I think, that without Philip, we wouldn't have this magnificent facility and this extraordinary heritage for visual art.
And I think for Sika, the great legacy that he leaves us is his spirit of innovation. It was really the idea of being on the cutting edge, of bringing people together in an environment like this and putting the best of humanity into a space with the rest of us who are living, and to really take advantage of it to the fullest extent.
Phil Haynes was absolutely driven to help create a top-notch performing facility for all of those artists at the North Carolina School of the Arts. Opening night at the Stevens Center was probably the most exciting event that ever happened. And guess what Phil made happen? He brought stars like Leonard Bernstein, Isaac Stern, Gregory Peck. He had Lady Bird Johnson in the audience. The 3-day event showcased the School of the Arts, Winston-Salem, and this fabulous performing arts facility to the hilt.
I think if you're going to talk about his achievements, you'd have to say that perhaps the greatest one was in connection with the School of the Arts here, because this school would not be here except for 3 people probably. One was the governor, who thought it was a wonderful idea and put himself behind it. And his second was his assistant, John Ely, who saw 2 of the governor's ideas got done. And the third was Phil Haynes, who I think was really the spark plug. But Phil wanted it here in Winston-Salem because he said, this is a city, it's a great city when it gets behind something. And when Phil Haynes is behind something, then there's a great chances that it would be done. So he really was the first chairman of the committee that was going to decide where it went. And he was also the person who was the spark plug for the campaign to raise the money for it, which I think in 4 days they raised $900,000. But then from then on, the 45 years that the school's been here, Phil Haynes was behind it, or with it, or in front of it. And when you wanted something, you could ask him. You had to be careful about asking him because McNeil Lowery said that once he gets interested in something, he's like a tent. He's all over you. He was generous with his money. He was very generous with his time, and he was a tiger for his causes.
For about 30 years, I talked to Seeker and I said, look, you got 18 acres of empty land out there. Why don't you have a sculpture garden? They said, we can't afford it. I said, I'll tell you how you do it. You make a graveyard. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, when you go to Asheville, or you go to New Orleans, or you go to Paris, and you take a tour, they take you to the graveyard and show you this beautiful sculpture. Seeker was qualified to do a cemetery, but the board would never vote to do it. Well, I was complaining about it, and Wade Humgood heard me, and he said, hell, we'll do it at the school. Well, by then, everybody I knew that wanted to do it had passed. So I said, I'll do it. And I said, well, I want to get Richard Hunt. And he said, that's fine. So I called Richard and asked him, and he set the price, and I said, that's fine. And I said to him, Richard, where are you going to get planted? He said, I don't know. I said, why don't we get planted together? Well, he said, I'd like to do that. So that's a maquette of the sculpture. It's already in full place at the School of the Arts now. And I said, what are those holes in the back for? He said, that's where you get stuck. I said, well, I want them covered up. I said, now, you can get us stuck in there, but let's get it covered up when we do. And he said, where do you put the plaque? I said, stick it up on the wall. Well, he says, I'm going to design one for that. And I said, let's make it humorous. So he's designing a plaque for the 3 of us, and it'll all get done, you see. We can put the plaque up, and then all they got to do is stick the dates in. I mean, there's no need to make passing such a laborious task.